In every mansion, behind the shining walls and sparkling chandeliers, there are secrets, and sometimes tears. Sarah never imagined that the glittering gates of Banana Island would open to her, but what she thought would be a blessing soon turned into a nightmare. Before we dive into this powerful story, please hit the subscribe button and like this video so that more people can hear Sarah's story. Now, let me ask you, have you ever been underestimated because of where you came from? Or treated unfairly simply because people thought you didn't belong? If you have, then this story will strike a deep chord with you, because what happened to Sarah in the Duru mansion is something you won't forget in a hurry. The first time Sarah walked through the glittering gates of Chief Duro's mansion in Banana Island, carrying her small Ghana must-go bag, her heart was beating fast. Chief Duru, who had brought her from the village, patted her shoulder gently and said, "Do your work well, my daughter, and you will be fine here." She nodded shyly, staring at the mansion that looked like something from the movies. White pillars, polished glass walls, cars lined up in the driveway gleaming under the sun. But from the moment Madam Stella's eyes fell on her, Sarah felt the chill. Stella stood in the middle of the sitting room, dripping with gold jewelry, her perfume heavy in the air. She looked at Sarah up and down slowly and scoffed. "This one. Chief, are you sure she can handle my house?" Chief forced a smile. "She will manage. Just give her a chance." Behind Stella, her daughters Andrea and Adele laughed quietly, their designer slippers tapping on the marble floor as they whispered to each other. "See her headscarf. She looks like a village rat." That was how her life in the mansion began. And soon, Sarah realized this was not a home, but a prison wrapped in wealth. One early morning, she was on her knees scrubbing the marble floor until her hands ached. She had polished the glass table 3 times already. Stella walked in wearing a silk robe, sipping tea, and without any words, she dropped her cup and ran her finger along the glass. She held up the finger. "Look at this. Dust everywhere. Sarah, what have you been doing since morning? Playing?" Sarah froze, with the rag still in her hand. She said, I cleaned it, Ma. I just—" Before she could finish, Stella's voice thundered. "Are you calling me a liar? Clean it again." Another day, Sarah had ironed a delicate lace blouse and folded it neatly on the bed. Madame Stella picked it up, held it against the light, and shouted, "Sarah, what have you done? You have ruined my blouse. Do you know how much this cloth costs? It is worth more than your entire village." Sarah's lips trembled as she whispered, "Sorry, Ma, I didn't mean to." But Stella flung the blouse in her face. "Iron it again, and if you spoil it again, you will work in this house for 1 year without pay." The Duru's daughters were no better than their mother. They turned torment into a game. One afternoon, Sarah mopped the entire sitting room floor until it shone. As she stepped back to admire her work, Andrea and Adele marched in from school laughing and deliberately walked across the wet floor in dirty sandals. Adele looked back with a smirk. "Oh no, it looks like you have to mop again, Maid." They burst into laughter, tossing their bags on the sofa. Sarah sighed, bent down, and started over, biting her lip to stop the tears. Even in the kitchen, Sarah does not have peace. She would carefully cook and serve meals, but the girls often snuck in behind her. Once, Adele poured extra salt into the pot of soup, and when Madame Stella tasted it at the dining table, she spat it out in fury. "What nonsense is this? Are you trying to kill me? Sarah, you stupid girl!" Sarah stammered, I cooked it well, Ma. I didn't—" Before she finished, Stella slapped her across the face. The girls looked at each other and giggled. Sarah had already grown used to the rhythm of cruelty in the mansion. Every day was the same: early rising, endless scrubbing, cooking, ironing, tears swallowed quietly. Yet she kept her head down and worked, praying silently for a change. When Madame Stella's daughters finally finished secondary school and began preparing to travel abroad for their further studies, Sarah's heart lifted a little. She told herself, maybe when they go, the house will be quieter and my suffering will reduce. As they drove off to the airport, Sarah whispered under her breath, "Thank God, at least I will have some peace." For the first few weeks, it seemed she was right. The house was a little quieter, without the constant taunts and mischief of the girls. Sarah moved more freely, the sound of their mocking laughter no longer chasing her through the corridors. But just when she thought her suffering might ease, Madame Stella brought her aged mother to live with them. The old woman was sharp-tongued, always frowning at Sarah, always complaining. She would sit in the parlor with a stick beside her chair, calling Sarah's name every few minutes. "Girl, come here. Why is this tea not hot? Why are the curtains open when the sun is burning my eyes? Are you daft?" And if Sarah delayed even a moment, the stick would slam against the floor. "Lazy thing. I can't believe they keep you in this house. I have told my daughter to send you away so that I can bring a good girl for her from the village, but she won't listen." One evening, Sarah was upstairs folding laundry when Grandma called her name once. She didn't hear. By the time she ran down, Grandma was already fuming. "So you have grown wings, eh? I was calling you and you refused to answer me. Lazy girl." Sarah tried to explain, "Mama, I was upstairs. I didn't hear." But Grandma hissed and marched to her daughter's room. "This girl is useless. I was calling her. She ignored me." Stella's eyes turned cold immediately. "So you now have the guts to ignore my mother? You have no respect at all." Sarah fell to her knees. "No, Ma, I didn't hear. I was—" Before she finished, the words were cut short by the sting of a slap. "Shut up. You lie too much. From now on, if my mother calls you once and you don't answer, you will sleep outside." In that house, Sarah's tears meant nothing. Only Chief Duru showed her a little kindness, but he was a very busy man and hardly ever around. But any time he was home and saw his wife's cruel treatment towards Sarah, he often tried to intervene when things went too far. One evening, he returned from work to see Sarah kneeling in the corner of the sitting room with her hands raised high. Sweat ran down her face, her arms trembling. He turned sharply to his wife. "Stella, hubba, must you treat the girl like this? She's a human too. She works from morning till night. Give her a break." But Stella's face hardened, her voice dripping with anger. "Chief, don't interfere. This is my house, and I won't let a mere housemaid disrespect me." "One day you will regret the way you treat this girl," he said as he shook his head and went upstairs. The moment he turned his back, Stella hissed at Sarah. "So you have turned Chief into your lawyer, Abi? You think his sympathy will save you? From today, I will make sure you regret every time you make my husband talk to me like that again." True to her word, the punishments grew harsher whenever Chief showed her kindness. Sometimes he pressed a few notes in Sarah's palm quietly and said, "Use this to buy yourself something. Your madam doesn't have to know." He would sigh deeply when Stella screamed too much. "Stella, leave the girl. She's trying." But his voice carried no weight. The mansion belonged to his wife and her daughters, and their word was law. The cruelty was relentless, but Sarah's spirit refused to die. Anytime she thought of quitting, she remembered the situation of her family. Her siblings' school fees needed to be paid, and her father, who was now down with a stroke, needed a lot of money for his treatment. Sarah resorted to crying and praying quietly every night, clutching her small Bible and begging God for a way out. She didn't know that her answer would come in the most unexpected way, through a grand party in that same mansion and through the eyes of a man she never dreamed would notice her. Chief Duru and his wife had decided to throw a lavish party to celebrate the successful graduation and return of their daughters from London. Madame Stella spared no expense. From the decoration to the food, everything was exquisite. The whole garden was lit with fairy lights, and cars of the wealthy lined the street. Andrea and Adele wore imported gowns, and their mother boasted loudly to her friends, "Tonight, my daughters will surely catch the attention of Lego's finest bachelors." But Sarah, as usual, was supposed to serve food in her faded maid uniform. But a few days before the party, Chief Duru called her quietly into his study. He handed her a small envelope. Sarah opened it and gasped, "Money? Sir, I don't understand." The chief smiled gently. "Go buy yourself a nice outfit for the party and do your hair. You are young. You should not look like a shadow at your age. Just be careful." Sarah's eyes watered as she whispered, "But Madame will—" He cut her off softly. "Don't worry about her. Just go." Sarah got herself a very lovely gown, not too expensive, but better than any outfit she had ever owned. She also stopped at the salon to fix a nice short wig, but because of her maid scarf that was always on, Madam Stella didn't notice the hair before the party. On the D-Day, everyone was busy. Madam Stella and her golden girls were already in the garden welcoming guests, while Sarah was still busy inside. When she finished up in the house, she decided to dress up in her new outfit to go outside and assist the food vendors as Madam had instructed her. She didn't think much of her dressing, she simply wanted to look presentable, as Chief had told her to. But that evening, when she stepped out in the new gown, hair neatly styled, gasps rippled through the garden. Guests whispered, "Who is that? Which billionaire's daughter is she?" Another guest, "She's beautiful, even more than the celebrants." Among those who noticed her was Steve, a handsome bachelor from a wealthy family. He was probably the most eligible bachelor at the party. He couldn't take his eyes off her. Even when Madam Stella quickly called for a toast to distract the attention from Sarah, he kept looking around to see her. When she came close to serve his table, he smiled kindly. "Thank you," he said. "You're welcome, sir," she whispered nervously. Then she hurried away, blushing with embarrassment. But Madam Stella had seen the exchange, and her heart burned with fury. When the last car drove away and silence filled the mansion, Stella dragged Sarah inside. She slapped her hard across the face. "Who gave you permission to dress like a queen in my house? Are you trying to disgrace me before my guests? From today, you will never wear anything but your uniform. Do you hear me?" Sarah sobbed, nodding, "Yes, ma'am." But it was already too late. Steve had noticed her, and his instincts told him something was different about this quiet girl. Twice that evening, he had caught Madam Stella snapping at her in a tone no one would dare use on an equal, and the way Sarah lowered her head each time Stella was talking to her only deepened his suspicions. She wasn't just a guest, she was the maid. Something in his heart whispered. And from that moment, Steve's curiosity was sealed. And so, while the music played and laughter filled the Duru mansion, a silent story had begun. Steve's eyes were no longer on the wealthy guests or Madam Stella's daughters. They were fixed on Sarah. He had questions, and he would return for answers. For though the night ended in celebration, a new story had just begun, and the answers he sought would come at a dangerous cost. If you enjoyed this story, make sure to hit that subscribe button because you wouldn't want to miss what happens in part 2, where the real drama unfolds. Steve will return to the mansion, but not for the reasons Madam Stella thinks. Secrets will be uncovered, and Sarah's life will never be the same again.